Welcome to another MPCNC video. This video is about how I tackled a spoilboard. It includes setup, the CAD and the CAM, and the actual machining of the board. I haven't included the facing, as I'm going to do another video detailing that. So we have my new spoilboard set up on the board. Just set all my limits, which is for my X and my Y. I just installed those yesterday. Just remember to make sure that the right limit switch is set up with the right motor, otherwise you'll be chasing your tail around for ages. The following video we'll be doing the cam, but we need to do some measurements first. So I've just set everything to home in the bottom left hand corner, but we need to measure the area where it can't actually reach. So when we come to do the cam, we know where that we can and can't reach on this piece of board. Now, although my MPCNC is quite small by comparison to many people, the process in my mind will be exactly the same. Okay, so as I said, I've got it in 0, 0 there, so where my bit is here will be the bottom left hand corner. So all I'm going to do is I am going to lower my Z just so it touches the board, just so I can get a rough little pen mark just there. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to jog through the Y. Let's make that slightly larger. And that is probably about as far as I want to go in the Y, so I'll make another little pen mark just there. Don't have to be like millimetre accurate, but and now I'm going to go over in my X. Turn that down slightly so I don't over travel. Can I manage another one? We'll call that quits just there. And then I've got a point there. And we're going to come down in the Y back a ways now. Just remember, there's probably multiple ways of doing this. I could just set my home my Y. There we go. Multiple ways of doing this, but I'm new. I'm just starting out, and I'm going to work through this. Just learn by my mistakes, because I will make plenty of them. So I know when I think this through. When I come to do my board, I've got just under 13 inches in both directions to play with, and I have to keep within those bounds, otherwise I'll just go cutting all over the shop. So I've got the measurements from my spoilboard and my T-nuts. I've opened up Fusion 360. I'm going to save it as a new file, board mark 2. Save it in my MPCNC folder. Save. I'm going to start off by drawing out my cutting area. Now, the reason why we marked out the cutting area on the spoilboard, so we know the limits of where my router can go.
because then when we come to do all the holes for the T-nuts, I know that they need to be within that box effectively, to be able to be reached by the router when it starts milling them. So start a new sketch, start it on the front so it's top down and my x-axis is orientated. So I've started a new sketch on here. I know my measurements for my, I call it my cutting boundaries. Mine's slightly rectangular, so it is 32 to 325 millimeters that way, and it is 310 that way. There we go. So that's the boundaries of where my router can mill, basically. I'm going to draw another sketch, which is actually going to be the base for my cutting area. This box needs to be, unless you're making it exactly the same size as your cutting area, it needs to be dead center of the board that I'm going to draw. Reason being is when I flip it over on the y-axis, if it's not, then it's gonna not be able to face where all my holes are, and then it's kind of pointless. So I'm going to draw another rectangle. It is going to be 700 by 415. Drag it over and then put some dimensions in. I know this distance needs to be 45, which means that distance will be 45. It's going to say I've over constrained, which is fine. I know that this distance needs to be 135, which means this distance should therefore be 255, which it is, but it's going to say it's over constrained, but that's fine. Cancelled. All the lines are black. Brilliant. So escape out of that. So I'm going to extrude this to the thickness of my board, which is 18mm MDF. Turn my sketch back on, so I know that that's the top, or will be the bottom. So I'm going to create a new sketch on this top plane here. I'm going to project these lines so that I can work with them. Okay. I'm going to add in some lines. If you move your cursor along the line there, it gives me a center point signified by the triangle, and then I can come straight down and mark off one there, just so I've got a rough guidance to where I'm working with. Same on the left hand side to the right, just like that. I'm going to finish that sketch right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create another sketch in here, and then I'm going to start creating my hole patterns. So I know that the widest point there, 22mm, I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, so I'm going to put 1/2 mm on the side. I'm then going to do the center hole, then 9.3, but so I'm going to go 9.5 just so I've got a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to finish that sketch there, and you'll see why in a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a go back here, can't do it like I thought you did. I'm going to create a rectangular pattern of these, and I want it to go 7 across. There you go, I've got 7, and I want it to go 7 down. Drag these over, making sure that they still stay within the confines of my board. Drag them down. There we go, got the centre holes as well. Drag them down. And then they're within the confines of my board. I'm going to click OK. And there's all my T-nut holes. So I need to now, my T-nuts are about 1.55 thick, so the larger hole needs to have a depth of 1.55. I'm going to make it 3mm just so I know that my board isn't leveled, so when I do the operation it's going to actually create the depth that I need, because I know it's out by about 1.5. So I need to select all of these. There probably is a quicker way of selecting them all. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm not gonna make up anything. Make sure you select the flat circular part like I have, not the actual lines, because it won't work. Extrude those. So I'm going to go, my board's 18mm thick, I'm going to go to minus, that doesn't matter, so I said they're 1.5 thick, my T-nuts. I'm going to go to minus 3mm, press enter, and then there's, you got your recess for your T-nut. And now we're going to do all of these, the center holes. I was just about to say this, but in the wrong place. I'm going to itchy trigger finger. 2, 3. If you accidentally select something, just click on it again and it'll unselect it. As I've said in previous videos, this is just the way that I've taught myself to do things. There probably are other ways of doing things better. I just know that this works for me. One last row. Hold shift down to select multiples. Right, we're going to extrude those. As I said previously, my board's 18mm thick. I'm not going to go all the way down to 80mm, because I don't want to go through the board and into my board that will be underneath this, and when I flip it over to do the facing operation, it's going to take off those 2 mils that I'm going to leave. So I'm going to go minus 16 through cutting operation. There we go, there's my 16 mil extrusion. So I've moved over to the manufacturer here. In my setup, I've done box point. I'm just going to do it in the middle of my Z-axis. my stock, I've done 0 offset from the sides and offsets from the top. Doesn't really matter. The only one that really matters is the top offset, because I want to mill straight into the board. I'm not skimming it or facing it or anything like that. So go OK. We want to do a 2D pocket. My tool I'm going to select, I have in my library, I have a 6mm flat end mill single flute. In my geometry, I'm then going to go through and select all of these. Again, I'm pretty sure there must be a way of selecting all of these, but I'm not sure what it is. I'll probably look it up afterwards. I know there is a, in the hole drilling thing, there is a hole detection, so it will detect the same diameter holes, I think it is, and it will auto select them. Try and select them in an order, because it will zoom out. I don't want to leave any stock. Usually you leave stock because so you can do a finishing pass over, but I don't really need to. I'm going to go OK. And that's it. That'll do my simulate it. Not too sure about the order it's chosen to go in. Working from the inside out by the looks of it. Close that. Looks like it's ramping in or spiraling in to the board and then doing the full 3mm cut. If you go back in and edit the tool flow and go into multiple depth select, and if you do a maximum roughing, it will do it in a 1mm depth. So if I select that, it's now done the main part in 3 different levels, as opposed to just going in and doing the whole 3mm in one go. So we're going to use a 2D boring operation. This is the one that selects the multiple holes of the same depth. We've got my 6mm flat geometry. If I select the first face of the hole and then do select same diameter, selected them all. Let's go OK. Now what I've just found is if you just simulate from here, you'll get all of these rapid collision with stocks. That's because the stock, it's working that the stock hasn't been bored out yet. So if you close that and you go up to your setup one and you simulate to there, and then you go to your next operation, you'll notice that there aren't any collisions. Don't know why. It's just the way that it works, but it just fried my little noodle trying to work it out for a couple of minutes. But there's our spoilboard, all bored nicely. So
I've cut my spoil board, I've got all my G code loaded up. I'm going to home my X and Y and then my Z, and then we'll start cutting. Now I'm going to do my Z height at one of the lowest points on my board, just to make sure that all the holes go to at least the rough depth that I need them to go to. So I know that that's at this corner up here. So that should do just fine. I'm going to check that my end stops are all, my Z end stops working at least, which it is. Connect my probe, stick my plate underneath, home my Z. There we go. Disconnect that, put my goggles on. There we go. I'm going to load my G code. Oh, they're dirty. Bear with me a second. Right, time to go. Let's see. Right, that's all the holes done. I did have to go back, and I think it's something to do with the boring operation and the MPCNC, I don't know, but the original set I did to the exact size that I thought I'd need, and they were like about a millimetre, 7.75 millimetres too small, so I went back over and just enlarged them out slightly. You can see with my T-nut, it now fits in the hole. There's a little bit of play in it, but here we go. It's all a learning experience. I've just uploaded my G code for the pockets so that the T-nut sits flush within the gap. So we'll start the router off. And there we have it. T-nuts fit in nice and snug on the tops, all the holes. There we go. Let's bang one of those in just for. The only thing I will do before I flip this board over is just run a sander with kind of maybe a heavy grit over the top of it, just to take off these lips that have been left. But overall, I'm rather impressed. There we go. Probably need to give them a little bit more of a whack. But they're in there. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I know it was a bit of a long one. There are going to be some more in the future. The next one coming up will be doing the machining of the flip side of the spoil board that I've just created. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please like and subscribe.